Begin today the Gemara on Daf Ches, the top of the Yamud, 6 lines down from the top of the Yamud. Amar Rav Yudah Berei Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei de Rav. So this is connecting to what the Gemara spoke about before regarding the bracha of Shemaya Tefillah, that in this bracha in Shemay Nesra, one is allowed to say his own personal requests in the middle of the bracha. So he said as follows: Ava b'shamru shayel adam tzrachav b'shemei tefillah. So it was said, as we learned before here, that one may ask his own personal bakashas in the bracha of Shemei tefillah. Aval imbal loime b'seif kol bracha. If one wants to say any personal bakasha in the end of every bracha, which is me'en kol bracha, similar to the theme of what that bracha is, oimer, he's allowed. So by all of the brachas of Shemay Nesra, by the end of the bracha, he's allowed to say for himself a personal bakasha related to what that bracha speaks about. Amar Abchia Barashi Amar Rav Afal Pisha Omros. He said a similar thing, that even though it was said Shoyel Adam Tzrachov B'Shemei Tefillah, that a person asks. We're going to have to get Gemara. This is going to get complicated every day. Even though it was said,
just before the Shemay.
Got it? Shoyel Adam Tzrachov B'Shemei Tefillah, that a person asks for his needs only in the bracha of Shemei Tefillah. Im yeshle chayle b'toich beisai, if he has someone that's sick in his house, ayme beberchas chaylim. He says in the bracha of berchas chaylim and the bracha of Rafa'enu, at the end of the bracha, he says to ask for a refuah shalayva for the one that's sick. V'im tzarech leparnasa, if he needs parnasa, ayme beberchas hashanim. He says in the bracha of Baruch Aleinu, he asks for parnasa. So this is similar to the previous statement. One of the points that's added over here, and what Rav Chia Barashi says in the name of Rav is, the Mefarshim say, that you only could say your own personal bakashas if the bakasha of the person is for someone that's already sick in the home, or he already needs parnasa. But just to say a personal bakasha if it's not an actual need that he has yet, and he just wants to say for the future that no one should get sick or you should have parnasa for the future, that is not enough of reason to interrupt and say a personal bakasha. Only if he has a chayla or has a need, then he can stop and say this personal bakasha at the end of that bracha. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, Ava bisha amru shayel adam tzracha b'shemei tefillah. Although it was said that a person asks for his needs, you could interrupt in the bracha of Shemei tefillah. Aval in Baal loima achat filasai, if at the end of Shemay Nesra he wants to say his personal bakashas, then he can say whatever he wants. Afil l'keseder Yom Kippurim, even as long as the seder of davening on Yom Kippur, he can say whatever bakashas he wants at the end of Shemay Nesra. Aymer, he can say. Okay, Stakdeilige Mishneh, continuing regarding the halacha we're learning in this Perek about the different holidays of Avoda Zara, when you're not allowed to have dealings with a guy. These are these holidays of Avoda Zara. Kalanda, Star Nura, Kartisen, V'yom Genusya Shal Malcheim. All these different names and holidays will be explained in the Gemara. V'yom Aleida, the day of the birth of the king. V'yom Hamisa, the day that he dies. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. The day that he's born, they make a whole celebration, and it also becomes a celebration for Avoda Zara as well, so you can't do these dealings with a guy. Chachamim say that the day that the king dies, it depends. If this is the day that the king dies, and what they do is they would burn all of his personal belongings in order that nobody else should use it, because nobody's fit to use anything that belonged to the king. So because this is such a major thing, Yeshpa Avodas Kechavim, this also brings them to also celebrate with Avoda Zara, so then you shouldn't do these business dealings with a guy. But V'she'ein Basreifa, if it's not such a major thing, and they don't burn his belongings, then Ein Ba'avodas Kechavim. There is no serving Avoda Zara here, and therefore there's no issue to do the business with a guy. Okay, till here we're all speaking about these holidays of Avoda Zara, or different things that were done in generally for everyone. Here are things that a person is privately has a day of a holiday for himself. Aval Yom Teglachas Kanei, on a day that a person shaves his beard, ublurisai, or he cuts off a ponytail, which is once in a while, and it's not a set date, and it's a personal thing. Or V'yom She'ala B'Min Hayam, a day that a person came from overseas, and he comes and he travels and he makes it home safely. Or V'yom She'yatzah Mibeisa Asurim, a day that he was released from prison. Or a guy that's making a wedding for his son. So then any asa that is. So regarding these, which are personal days of celebration, and the person, this guy could be making a celebration and serving for his Avoda Zara as well, but it's not like a regular holiday for everyone. So ena asa el isa yom v'isa ish bilvad. So here the iser is only for that day and only for this individual himself, and not for anyone else. So the Gemara Amar Rav Chana bar Rava Kalanda. So the first holiday that was mentioned here, Kalanda, when is this? Ches Yomim Achar Tekufa. This is the 8 days after the winter solstice. That's the beginning of the Tekufa of the winter in Tevis. Star Nura, when is this holiday? Ches Yomim Lufnei Tekufa. 8 days before the winter solstice. V'simanach, the siman to translate these two holidays properly is Achar v'Kedem Tzartani. Just like in this pasuk it says Achar before Kedem, behind, before the front. So over here as well, Kalanda, it comes after the holiday of Tarnura that comes 8 days before. The source of these two holidays, the Gemara explains as follows. Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Braisa. The fi shara Adam Arishan Yaim Shemismayit v'Hailach. Adam Arishan was created, and then he sees that the daylight time is getting less and less. So Amar, he said to himself, Oy li, woe to me, Shama b'shvul shesarachti. Maybe because I sinned, Oylam choshech badi. The world I'm living in is slowly getting darker and darker. After he was created, so the days were getting shorter and shorter. So he thought it's a result of, it's another punishment for the Aveda of Chatei Tzadas. And v'chayzel toyev avoyu, and eventually the world will go back to toyev avoyu, to nothingness. And v'zuy misa sheniknisa alayim and hashamayim. This is also the death that was the penalty of death that was punished. I'm punished with from heaven. So Amad v'yashav ches yamim b'tainis u'b'tfilah. He stood, he sat, and he fasted 8 days, and he davened. And then what happened? He came to the shortest days. So those days that he was fasting, those are the last days of the Tkufa, where the days get shorter and shorter. And then Kim Sharat Tkufas Tevis, and then begins the next Tkufa, the Tkufa of Tevis. V'raj Yom Shamayich v'Hailach, and that's at the winter solstice when the days slowly start becoming longer. So Amar, he said, and he realized Minhagish Alaylamu, that this is the nature of the world, that the days get shorter and then longer. So Halach v'asa Shmini Yamim Tovim. So he celebrated 8 days for the fact that he realized that he's not being punished. L'shana hacheres, it came the following year, Asan le'elu u'le'elu Yamim Tovim. He made the 8 days of the beginning of the new Tkufa and the last 8 days, the end of the previous Tkufa, he celebrated both of them. So who kavam l'shem shemayim? Adam Arishain, so he established these days that for the sake of heaven, to thank Hashem. Then the Goyim went and used this same time period, and they use it for Avoda Zara, and they celebrate this time for Avoda Zara. So the Mashal says, based on what the Gemara says there, you understand why it mentions Kalanda before Sartanura, even though it's out of order, because originally he celebrated Kalanda when he realized that the days are getting longer. So that was the celebration first, so therefore it mentions that first.
This fits the Rambam's sheet that he holds, that originally there was they did everything for the Shem of Elikut, for the boss.
And then it evolved into Avoda Zara. Correct. Another thing that you see here from the Gemara is that the way it is by the Goyim today, that they begin their new year in January. It's based on this. And this word, kalanda, the word calendar, the calendar of the year, that this is where the word comes from. And this is when the Goyim begin the new year, is at that time, in the Tkufas Tevis that the Gemara is talking about here. When the Gemara asks now in this Braise, this is true and understood according to the opinion that says that the world is created in the month of Tishrei. So what it says here about Adam Arishan is understood because Yom Zuti Chaze, he only saw the days that are shorter days and they're getting shorter and shorter. He didn't yet see the days getting any longer. So therefore, it makes sense that he got worried that the world is getting darker and darker. But according to the opinion that says that the world was created in Nisan, so from Nisan throughout the summer he already saw shorter days and longer days. In Nisan the days are actually shorter, and then as the summer goes on, the days get longer and longer, And then in the end of the summer, the days get shorter again. So you already saw that there's the nature of the world, that it gets shorter and longer. So why does it say that he got afraid when he saw that the days are getting short, that he thought that the world will disappear? And says the Gemara, Zutta kulahai loy chaze. No, but what he saw in the winter, that the days are so short, that he didn't see yet. Only then, when he saw how short the days become, that's when he got worried. Tana Rabbanan, another brayse we learned in connection to this, Yom Shenivra by Adam Arishan, the first day of creation, that Adam Arishan was created, Kivin Sheshakal of Chama, when the sun set, Omar, he said to himself, Oili Shebishvil Shesarachti Oilam Choshech Badi. He thought that it's because I sinned, so the world is becoming dark on me. And the Yachs Oilam L'Toyev Avoya, the world will return to Toyev Avoya. And V'zui Misa Sheniknasa Alayim and Hashamayim, and this is the death that I'm punished with. He was sitting and fasting and crying all night. And his wife Chava is sitting and crying across of him. Then, as soon as it started becoming light, the morning star comes up. Amad, he said, this is the nature of the world. So Amad, v'hikrev, he brought a carbon. What kind of carbon? Shoyer, an ox, shekarnov, kaidmol leparsaisov, an ox that its horn was created before its hooves. Why? The Gemara brings the source in the pasuk. Shanema, it says in the pasuk, "V'sitav Lashem." David the Melech says that my davening should be better for you, even more than misher par makrin mafres, more than that sher par that Adam Rishon brought, and his sher par, the keren, is created before the mafres, before the hooves. What this means is the behemoths, the highest that were created in Sheshis and Mebreshis, that were created out of the ground, fully. But they came out of the ground. So when the behemoth comes out of the ground, the keren, the horn, came out first, and then the hooves. The opposite of the way it is by an ox, when it's born and it grows naturally, it's born and it has the hooves first, and the horns only grow later. So this is the unique shayr that Adam Rishon brought as a carbon.
So he was born in the winter.
Again?
It looks like Adam Rishon was born in the winter.
Why?
Huh?
Lav Dafka. It's a machlekes, yeah. Rav Yudah Mashmul. Rav Yudah said in the name of Shmuel in connection to this carbon of this ox that Adam Rishon brought. Shoy shehikrev Adam Rishon, the ox that Adam Rishon brought, keren achas haysaloi b'mitzchay. It had only one horn in its forehead. Shanema, because the pasuk says, "V'sitav Lashem misher par makrin mafris." So the Gemara asks, how do you see from here that it was only one? Makrin tarti mashma. The word makrin, it actually sounds like it grew two horns. Why only one? Amar Rav Nachman v'Yitzchak mikeren ksiv. It says keren. It's written without that yud, which means it's written as one horn. Okay, what's exactly the significance of this one horn? Farshim speak about it. It's not that one horn shows up on a certain Indian that he was. This is the carbon that he was makriv. Okay, Rav Masna. Amar Rav Masna. Rav Masna said, so we have it here. So, okay, this is going back to the halachas of the Mishnah regarding the holidays of Avoda Zara. Roimi she'asta kalanda. So it's the Romans. This was the Roman holidays for Avoda Zara, and they have this holiday of kalanda. But then there are other cities that are near Rome that mishtabdis. They are under the rulership of the Romans. So the question is, Oisan Ayarais, so those other cities that are not mamish in Rome, but they are under the control of the Romans, Asurais and Mutaris. Over there, would it also be asked to do the business dealings with a guy in these times of the holidays, or not? What's the Gemara Shaila? Do I say that because they are subjugated to the Romans, so if you do business dealings with these guys, even if they don't themselves celebrate these holidays, but the money or the business that you do with them will then be given and be used by the Romans, and you'll still be causing them to thank their Avoda Zara, or because they themselves did not celebrate these holidays, so it's allowed. This holiday of Kalanda is also to everyone, including those cities around. The Isser only applies to the Romans that actually celebrated it. Tanya Kava say that Rav Yechanan, we learned in a brayse like Rav Yechanan said, although it says that Reimi Asta Kalanda, that the Romans are the ones that have this Avoda Zara, this holiday, and then there's the other cities around that are under the Roman rulership, but he atzma ein asura el levdei b'lvad. However, this holiday, the Isser of it itself, it's only for the Roman ones that serve the Romans and not the other cities around. Okay, then the Brisa goes on to say another thing. Star Naliyah, Kartasim, V'yayim Genusya Shal Malchayim. These are other holidays, and V'yayim, the Gemara will explain later. V'yayim Shehum Lach Boi Melech, and the day that the king is appointed to be a king, lofan of aser. The days before, it's aser to do to have business dealings with a guy, but achrav mutter. Afterwards, it's allowed. Another thing, which we had also in the Mishnah, similar, a guy that's making a wedding for a son, ain't also elo isai yom. So the isser of the business dealings is only on that day of his wedding, and the isai ish, and only this person that's making the wedding. Now, Amar Ravashi says, Afanan nami tanina. We could also prove from our Mishnah the point that Rabbi Yechanan said that the Isser is only to do dealings with a guy that's in Rome itself, not for the cities that are around, even though those cities are under the Roman rulership, but they did not have this holiday, so it's not also for them. So we could learn this out from what it said in our Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Yom Tiglachas Keina Ublurisai. The day that by the Goyim, on the day that they shave their beard or cut their ponytail, or the day that he came from overseas or was released from prison. So what the Mishnah says is, Ein Aser Ela Oisa Yom Bilvad. The Isser is only on this day, and then the Mishnah says V'Oisai Ha'ish, and only for this person himself. So what is that addition of only this person himself? In fact, the Mishnah says that it's only on this day. That's understood. It's excluding that not any days before or not any days after. But ish, when it says only this person, what is it coming to exclude? Who else would I think? We're talking here about an individual. It's only him. He's shaving his beard. Who else would I think is included in this? So don't you think that what it's saying is mishabdov? If there's other people that work for him or are connected to him, that are celebrating with him, that maybe you would think you can't do any business dealings with them as well. And it's coming to say that they are not included in this. So from that we can learn out that similar applies also regarding those cities that are around Rome. And they did not celebrate these holidays, even though they're under the Roman rulership. It does not, the Issa doesn't apply to them. Shema Minah, that proves, our Mishnah proves this point as well. Tanya, we learned in Abraisa, Rabbi Shmuel Oimer. Rabbi Shmuel said, or another gear says, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Oimer. Yisrael shebechutza la'aretz, Yidden that live outside of Eretz Yisrael, Oivdei Avodas Kachavim B'Tarehem. They're serving Avoda Zara in purity. How could you say this? That Yidden in Chutz La'aretz are serving Avoda Zara? Ketzad, how does this happen? A guy is making a wedding for his son, and Vizim and Kol Yehudim should be right, and he invites all the Yidden in the city. So Avapi, they come and join this wedding, and even if Sha'ichlin Mishalahem, they eat their own kosher food, V'Shaisim Mishalahem, and they're drinking from their own drinks. V'Sham Mishalahem, they have their own servant, Oimel Lefneim standing in front of them. But Maila Alein Akasov, the Torah considers it Ki Ilu Achlu Mizivchei Mesim, as if they ate from what's being slaughtered for Mesim for Avodah Zara. Because the guy is making his wedding and he's Avodah Zara and he slaughters for his Avodah Zara, and the Yidden are there. Shenema, the pasuk says, V'Kara Lochai, he invites you. And you ate from his Avodah Zara. So therefore, Yidden in the Chutz La'aretz that are joining these kind of celebrations are like they are serving Avodah Zara b'Tara. So the Gemara says, well, if you're learning it from this pasuk, why wouldn't I say, based on the language of the pasuk, ad da'achel, only if he actually eats from the party, from the wedding, as it says, va'achalta. So Rav answers, then the pasuk would say that you ate from it. The pasuk says first, and you were invited. From the time that the person is invited, just is invited and he's there, that itself is Avodah Zara b'Tara, being there when the guy is celebrating and shechting for his Avodah Zara. So therefore the Gemara now explains what should someone do if he's being invited to a wedding from a guy that's Avodah Zara. Kol Tlasi Yomim for 30 days, Bein Amalei Machmas Hilula, Bein Loi Amalei Machmas Hilula. If it's 30 days after the wedding of his son, and the guy is making a party, whether he tells you that this is a party for his son's wedding or whether not, also, you should not join because it's understood that this is still a celebration connected to his wedding, so there could be Avodah Zara there. After 30 days, if he says that this is still a celebration for the wedding, also, you should not join. But if he didn't say that it's connected to the celebration of the wedding, that is, he didn't tell him that it's for the wedding, shari, you're allowed to join. Now, so the Gemara explains, if he's telling you that it is for a celebration for the wedding, ad emes, until when? How long are you not allowed to join any party with the guy? Forever. So the Gemara says, no, Rav Papa says, ad tereser yarche shate. for 12 months. It is 12 months after the wedding. If he tells you this is a celebration for the wedding, you shouldn't join. Now, umeikare me'emis, from before the wedding, when he's preparing for the wedding, from when should you not join him in a party or in a celebration? So the Gemara answers, me'emis also, that is, from when is it also? Amar Rav Papa mishmei derave michiromu sari ba'asinti. From the time when he puts the barley into the pot, preparing to make the beer for the wedding, so that means it's already close enough to the time of the wedding that you shouldn't join in any parties with him. That's one pshat. Another pshat Rashi says is that they had this custom that they would put earth into a pot and they would put barley inside this earth and it would sprout quickly, and then they would bring this to the chassan and kala to show them that they will sprout and have children. So when they started and preparing this, that means that the wedding is happening very soon. Now the Gemara asks him what it said before. After 12 months, is it going to be allowed to join a party that the guy makes? But so he came and was by a guy, and it was already after the 12 months of the wedding of his son. And and he heard that the guy is celebrating and he's thanking his Avoda Zara. Upirish, and he left, he didn't eat anything there. So we see that this is even after the 12 months. So we're saying that it's only until 12 months. And so the Gemara is that because he's a very prominent person that came and that was there, so the guy was very happy that he came and he joined him, and that's why even after 12 months, he made a celebration and he thanked his Avoda Zara. But by a regular person, there's no concern for this, and you don't have to. You can be there with the guy even after 12 months. Okay, going back to what it said in the Mishnah, the holiday of Avoda Zara that's called Kartasim, Kartasim b'chulu. So what is this holiday? My Kartasim, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Yom shetafsa boy roimi Malchus. This is the day that the Romans celebrate because it's the day that the Romans conquered their kingdom that spread out over the whole world. But in Abraisa we learned that it says that there's a holiday that they celebrate that's Kartaisim, and then Malchus, and then there's another day they celebrate that the Romans captured and they spread out their kingdom. So we see that that's not what this holiday of Kartaisim is. There was two stages that the Romans conquered and they became the rulers over the world. Achas b'mei Cleopatra Malkusa. One was in the time of Cleopatra, that was a queen in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, in Alexandria. Cleopatra, huh?
It says over Cleopatra.
Okay. So she was the queen, and when the Romans conquered her, so that was one time that they celebrated. And then Va'achas, another time was Shatafsa b'mei Yevanim. Years later, when the Romans conquered the Greeks, the Yevanim, and then they took over the entire world. So these were two different times that they celebrated. So one is Kartasim, and one is Yom Shetafsa b'Roimi Malchus. As the Gemara here says, Yichasad Avdimi Yomar, Avdimi came and he said, Tlosin, Vitrein, Krovi, 32 battles of the Remoi Bahadi Yevanoi. The Romans fought with the Yevanim, with the Greeks. And they couldn't defeat them. What did they do? The Romans took the Yidden to participate with them to fight the Greeks. And this is the condition that the Romans made with the Yidden. That if we are going to be the kings, so you are going to be the governors. If you are going to be the kings, we are going to be the governors. So they made this pact with the Yidden to fight the Romans. And then what happened? The Romans sent the following message to the Yevanim. Ada idna avidna bekrove. Until now, we were battling and fighting you. But hashta navid bedina. Now, we're going to tell you, according to din, according to justice, or according to their judgment, why it's our time to rule over the world. And they said the following mashal. Margolis ve'evin toiva, if you have a pearl and a precious gem. What is more expensive, what's more precious, and what should be considered to be the setting, or the base, the setting for the other. So Shalchaluhu, the Yevanim sent back and said, Margolis is le'evan toiva. The Margolis, the pearl, becomes the setting for the precious gem that you put in it. And then they said further, Evan toiva and ve'inoch. If you have an Evan toiva, precious gem, and Inoch, which is or another Gersi of the Gemara, I think is Neifech, which is, or Anoch, a unique precious stone. And Rashi here says that this precious stone is called a carbuncle. Okay, huh? Whatever kind of stone this is. So, Ezeman Yaseh Basas L'Chavere. What becomes a setting for the other? So, Even Tove LeInoch. The Even Tove, the precious gem, becomes a setting for the Inoch, for this Inoch. Inoch is Sefer Torah. Inoch and a Sefer Torah, Ezeman Yaseh Basas L'Chavere. What becomes a basis for what? So they said Inoch l'Sefer Torah. This precious gem of Inoch becomes the setting where you place the Torah on it. So now after all of this, they said Shalchuluhu. The Romans told the Greeks, in Kain, if so, Anan Sefer Torah Gabban v'Yisrael Badan. We have now the Sefer Torah with us in the Yidden that are made a pact with us. And then what happened is they were able to overcome the Yevanim. And the Marshahi actually points out that all the different Mishalim that they said here, with the Margolis and the Even Tova and the Inoch, refers to the other kingdoms that ruled the world before them. There was Malchus Bavel, Paras, Persians, and then Yavan. And then came the Romans. So the Romans were basically saying, now it's our time, that it came our time to rule over the whole world. So Kafalu, they subdued the Greeks. Esrim v'shis shnin for 26 years. Kamalu b'hem. They kept their pact that they bad Yisrael that they made with the Yidden, that they're going to be governing and ruling the world together with the Yidden. But Mikan ve'elech, after 26 years, ishtabdu buhu, they ruled over Yidden. They subdued the Yidden. Why? Because Me'ekadam, my daughters, in the beginning, what did they expound in the Psukim? That they made this pact together with Yidden, Ola B'Seif, my daughters. And what did they darshan in the end? That they decided to rule over Yidden. Me'ekadam daughters, in the beginning, they darshan what it says by Yaakov and Esav, Nisav and Elchal, Ve'elchal le'negdecha. That we will travel and we'll go together. So they said, so they will go together and rule over the world together with Yidden. But Ola B'Seif daughters, in the end, they expanded the pasuk where it says, Yaverna Daini Lifnei Avdoi, that Yaakov says to Esav that you go ahead and in front of your slave, and therefore they ruled over Yidden, and they subjugated Yidden. So now the Gemara brings the source of this and says, Estrin v'shis shnin, these 26 years, the Kamu b'hem Nesai b'hadi Yisrael, that they kept their pact that they made with Yidden. How do we know that it was 26 years? From where do we know this? Okay, so the Gemara here brings the whole Inyan, and in the end we'll see where is the source for this number of 26 years. Now, that's because the Omar of Kahane said as follows: When Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yosi was ill, they sent him, Rebbe, our Rebbe, and tell us 2 or 3 things that you told us in the name of your father, Rabbi Yosi. So Amar Lahu, he said to them, 180 years before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Pashta Malchus Arisha al Yisrael. The wicked kingdom, which is the kingdom of the Romans, spread over the Yidden and ruled over the Yidden. Okay, so it's this number of 180 that will soon prove that the pact that they made with Yidden, that they should rule over the world together with the Yidden, they kept that only for 26 years. As we'll see soon, the Gemara will prove this. Okay, but now the Gemara says as follows. What happened was, Pei Shana Ad Lecharav Abayis. Another detail he said, all in the name of his father. 80 years before the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, Gozru Tumal Eretz Ha'amim. Chazal made a gzeira that outside of Eretz Yisrael, that in any place where you are, there's a gzeira of Tumah. If you go out in Chutz Laretz, you become Tomei, because the Goyim, they bury their dead without even making a Beis HaKvaris. There's no place you could see and know a sign, so they were guys of this gzeira. And then also Val Klis Chuchis. They also made a gzeira on glass, that it becomes Tomei. Even though in Atayra there's no Tumah by glass, but they made this gzeira on Klis Chuchis. Now, Mem Shana Ad Lecharav Abayis, 40 years before the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, Golsa Sanhedrin v'Yashvala b'Chanus. The Sanhedrin left its place in Lishkas Hagazis in the Beis Hamikdash, and instead they sat in a place Chanus, which is either another place in the Har Abayis or in Yerushalayim. But they weren't anymore in their place that they're supposed to be in the Lishkas Hagazis. Now, Lamai Hilchasa, what's the relevance of this point that the Sanhedrin left their place? So this is a side point here, but the Gemara goes through all of this and it will come back to the main point here, which is the 180 years, as we'll see. So the Gemara says as follows. The fact that they left comes and teaches us that from then on, They didn't anymore judge any judgment regarding penalties. If you have to pay a damage or anything which is a money payment, that yes, but not penalties. So the Gemara says, how could you say that from that point forward there was no Dine Knossos? Dine Knossos HaKadaitach, that's what stopped at that point. But we know that much further, much later in history, Chazal was still paskening Dine Knossos. Because Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, that there's this man that should be remembered for the good. And who is this? Rav Yehuda ben Bava Shmai. And his name is Rav Yehuda ben Bava. Shel Malihu, if not for him, Nishtakchu Dine Knossos mi Yisrael. The halachas of paskening, the Dine Knossos, would be forgotten from Yidden. So the Gemara clarifies, what does this mean? Nishtakchu. These halachas would have been forgotten. Why would have they been forgotten? L'girsinu, let them learn, and they won't forget. Ella, the Gemara explains what was meant to be said over here is Batlu Dine Knossos mi Yisrael. The ability to pasken these halachas of the Knossos, that would have been battle amongst Eden. Why is this? Because Shagazra Malchus Arisha Gzeira, the Romans, the wicked kingdom, the Romans made a Gzeira on the Yidden. Kol HaSaimech, that one that gives smicha. The smicha is from Moshe Rabbeinu, unbroken chain of smicha. If you give smicha, yaharik, you'll be killed. V'chol hanismach, anyone that receives smicha, also yaharik, will be killed. And also v'ir sheseimchem ba, a city where this smicha was done, ticharik, will be destroyed. And even more, utchum sheseimchem ba, even an area in the parameters, a tchum, which is the tchum Shabbos, 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas around, Yik'akir will also be uprooted. So they wanted to uproot the chain of Torah that Yidden had in smicha. So Ma said Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, what did Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava do? Holach v'yoshev ben shnei harim gedolim. He went and sat between two large mountains. Or ben shtei yares gedolis, between two cities. Ubein based Chomei Shabbos, between two outside of the Chom Shabbos of these areas where people live. Ben Usha l'Shfarim, between these two cities of Usha Shfarim, so no one else should be affected by this. And he gave their smicha to Chamishas Kenim, to 5 of the elders, which is Rab Meir, Rab Yehuda, Rab Yesi, Rab Shimon, Rab Elazar ben Shamua. And Rab Avia Meiser, Rab Avia Azza was the 6th. Rab Nechemia. Rab Nechemia also got smicha then. And then what happened? Kiv Shukir ben Moivim. The enemies, the Romans, realized that he's giving them smicha there, and they were coming and chasing them. So Amar Lahem, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said to all the Chachamim that he gave smicha to them, Banai, my children, Rutzu, you escape, and I will remain here. Amrulai, and so they said to him, Rebbe, Va'ata matahei alecha. What's going to be with you? They're going to attack you. Amar Lahem, he said to them, Areni mutal lefneim ke'evan she'en lo hoivchem. I will remain here like a rock that nobody is turning over. And in other words, they will focus on catching me and killing me, and meanwhile you will be able to escape. So Amru, they said about this, that Leizazu Misham, Achanotsu, Lugufay, Gimel, Meyes, Luleniyais, Shalbarza, Vasul, Lugufay, Kivra. They stuck these spears in his body, 300 of them, and they turned them into a sieve, and they killed him. But he then gave smicha to all of these chachamim, and because of this, they were able to continue paskening what? All kinds of halachas, including Dine Knossos. In order to be able to pasken even Dine Knossos, you have to have smicha. But what we see over here is that the Dine Knossos, Chacham pasken, even in this time period, which is later on, after the Chorban Abayis. So you can't say that when the Sanhedrin left their place in the Lishkas Agazis, they stopped paskening Dine Knossos. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Loi Taimeh Dine Knossos, when the Sanhedrin left, so it wasn't Dine Knossos that they stopped paskening. Elo shaledana Dine Nefoshes, capital punishment. That's what stopped at that time. My time, what's the reason they taka left and they did not allow to pasken Dine Nefoshes? Because Kivin the Chazda the Nefishalu Reitzchen. At that point they saw that there's many cases of murderers. And V'layachlu Lemeidan, and they couldn't pasken all these cases properly. So Amru, the Sanhedrin said, Mutlev Niglim Mimakim Lamakim, let's leave from our place in the Lishkas Agazis to a new place. Kehechu, the Loyat L'chayvu, so the Bezin should not have to take care of this matter, because they can't take care of this matter properly. And what this means is, who paskins din in nefashis? Not only the Sanhedrin and the Beis HaMikdash, it's the Bezin of 23 in every city that paskins din in nefashis. But every Bezin of 23 in their city can't paskin unless the Sanhedrin of 71 is in their place in the Beis HaMikdash. How do we know this? Because the pasuk says, "Va'asisa al pi adavar sheyagidu lacha." You'll do according to the matter that I say to you, min ha'makayim ahu, in that place. This is a pasuk that it says by the Zaken Mamre, which is Chayiv Misa. But from here we learn out that to give Misa, malamit sha'amakim gaidim. The Sanhedrin has to be in their place. Then you can give the Chayiv Misa. Okay, this was all a side point of what was mentioned here regarding what happened when the Sanhedrin left their place in the Beis Hamikdash. Now the Gemara gets back to what was mentioned before, that it said that the Romans ruled over the Yidden for 180 years from before the Chorban. So the Gemara asks on this, and this will bring us to the point that it said before, that 26 years the Yidden ruled together with the Romans, and afterwards the Romans ruled over the Yidden. So to explain this, the Gemara says, Meyesh, Mainim, Vesulai, was it only 180 years that the Romans ruled before the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? Wasn't it longer than 180 years? Okay, let's finish here the Inyan on the next moment. But Vatani Rabbi Yossi Berebi taught and said as follows, that he starts over here from the beginning of when the second Beis Hamikdash was built. Malchus Paras B'fnei Abayis Shloshim V'arba Shana. When they built the Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash was the Persian rulership that was for 34 years, right? They built, Kaidish was the Persian king that allowed them to build the Beis Hamikdash, and that went for 34 years. And then Malchus Yavam B'fnei Abayis, then the Yavanim ruled in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, Meya Shmeinim Shana, for 180 years. Then Malchus Chashminoi, after the Chashminoim, defeated the Yavanim, so the Malchus of the Chashminoi was B'fnei Abayis by the second Beis Hamikdash, Meya V'shalish, 103 years. And then after that, Malchus Beis Hordis was Me'eh V'shalish. The Malchus of Beis Hordis was another 103 years. Mikan ve'elech, after this, Tzeva Chashev Kameshonim, go and count how many years there are, Achar Chorban Abayis, and it's all after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. So what do you see? What does it say over here? That when did the kingdom of the Yavanim end? The kingdom of the Yavanim ended after the kingdom of Yavanim. There was still how many years left for the Chorban Abayis? 206 years. Because it says the Chashminoim ruled for 103 years, and Malchus Beis Hordis ruled for another 103 years. What did we say before? After the Malchus of the Yavanim fell, who's the one that conquered the Yavanim fully? So it was a Chashminoim, but it said before that it was the Yidden together with the Romans that completely defeated the Romans. So if that's the case, so they defeated the Yavanim, right, the Greeks. So it comes out, if so the Gemara asks, Alme, so from here we see, Masim V'Shishavo. So that should mean that the Romans ruled for 206 years before the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And you say that the Romans ruled only for 180 years over the Yidden before the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So to answer this discrepancy, this is the source of what we said before. So true, the Romans did rule for 206 years, from after the Greeks fell and were defeated. But for 26 of those years, they ruled together with the Yidden. So therefore, you can't say that the Romans ruled over the Yidden, because they ruled together with the Yidden. They did not subjugate the Yidden. So therefore, he doesn't include those 26 years in the number of years that the Romans ruled over Yidden. And therefore, if you deduct 26 from the 206 years, so it's left with 180 years that they ruled over the Yidden and before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So this is the source that for 26 years they kept their pact with Yidden, and after that they ruled over the Yidden as well.